Hello everybody, Adrian Plus here,
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
plus dog, who was sitting next to us and now got down. Usually she sits really nicely with us when we talk to you all.
She just heard you talking
Yeah,
about
maybe that
her.
was it. Anyway, it's number 135, I think,
Yeah, more
of
significantly than
Sounding the
that.
Shallows.
It's
yeah,
2023.
it is 2023.
And we were talking
indeed,
about the
yeah.
fact that we first did a recording sitting on the same sofa in 2020. It's very bizarre, really. Does it feel any different, really? Does the world feel a different place in 2023 than when we started?
I don't
We were
think
locked
it
down,
does.
of course.
I think there are still so many alarms and excursions,
Yeah,
or whatever they call them, things going on.
yeah,
And at the moment, it's a bit of a mess, really.
yeah,
There's a lot of stuff.
yeah.
We made a list. I've got a list. Look, poverty.
Ah,
I mean,
oh,
what we
There's-
call poverty in this country.
well, and all
Poverty.
over the world, though,
Yeah,
and abuse
yeah.
of power.
Yeah.
There's the whole thing about the climate. There's food insecurity for lots of people, and of course, there's COVID lurching around on the edge of everybody's lives, and threatening to get bigger and more powerful yet again. So it's a funny old time,
Do
really.
you find yourself forgetting about COVID or trying to pretend it never existed?
Well,
It doesn't exist.
I mean, I haven't got COVID, but I have been coughing like goodness knows what for nearly 3 weeks now. So I
Really,
suppose
I hadn't noticed.
I was thinking about what you said, Adrian, about my coughing at night, which goes on forever.
Well, it's the same for everybody, I think. I mean, if you're lying next to a cougher, what happens is that you feel. Starting to do now. What happens is you feel two things. One is a profound desire to be sympathetic and warm and helpful, and also an increasing agony of annoyance that someone is coughing without stopping. And when you know the pattern of the cough, even worse, you're waiting for the moment when it finally emerges in a frightful hacking noise of expellation of something or other. So those two things go hand in hand.
You do know I'm taking notes of this,
Yeah,
so
I
the
know.
next time you have a really
I
bad
know.
cough, I can.
Well, we have both been
I
through it,
know,
not
I
like
know,
that. But
I
no,
know,
I'm serious.
I
I mean, it isn't. It's involuntary. I mean, you just feel those things.
No, so there should be, coughed over Christmas and coughed over New Year. We had a lovely email, by the way. Last time we were talking about different things to do with Christmas. Of course, we were, and I mentioned our beautiful little nativity set, and we had somebody saying, if you remember, that they'd put a penguin in their nativity set and things. And I had a lovely email from somebody who's obviously a very good knitter, talking about knitting her nativity, a nativity for her toddler group. And she said, at first I did Mary, and she says she's good at knitting. She does say she won some prizes. Then she said, but she's rubbish at sewing up. So Mary looked like she's had a head retraction, and Joseph didn't look much better. So she moved on to doing a lamb, but accidentally used the wrong wool, and it turned out llama shaped, much bigger than Mary and Joseph. She said at that point she changed her mind and asked somebody else to write her a lovely nativity set. But the best plans can not quite work out, really.
I know. There is a bit of a shadow around, isn't there? I mean, we have
there
spoken
is.
about this before, and you mentioned the word abandonment.
Well,
the other
I've
day,
heard
didn't
it,
you?
several times on the radio, and on a sense of people feeling abandoned. The government that doesn't really seem to know what to do. The strikes, the illnesses, the sense of where are we in the world. I mean, and I think for a lot of people, the confusion about the royal family, about what are becoming almost like attacks from Harry, and are they real, are they not, and all these things are quite undermining, I think, really. So I think it is a funny old beginning of a year, Ukraine hasn't been sorted at all, and as I say, COVID lurching across the world from China again, and in the US there's some horrible new variants. I think there is an insecurity around, Adrian.
Yeah, well, there is indeed. We hear from a lot of people who perhaps don't, those who are believers, Christian believers, I suppose, in the main, who don't want to feel abandoned, but do feel it.
I know.
And are finding it very hard. I mean, using the metaphor we're talking about, no shore in sight, was the old one, and the new one is sounding the shallows, looking for somewhere to land. We'll come back to that in a minute, but we are, if we could mention it, right at the beginning of the time when you're supposed to make resolutions, aren't we? So what's your long list of...
Well, my first resolution is to stop coughing at night so that you are not put in this very difficult situation.
Well,
sorry, this is going to make me cough again.
The Pope, like the Pope Emeritus, who has sadly died, you are a saint, or may become a saint. I heard today might become a saint.
Oh, that was deeply sad for people who are part of the Catholic faith, I think. There is an
I
know, I was just going to say, the two popes, we would very rarely recommend a film, but it is about the present Pope and the Pope who's just died. Beautifully worked through. If you get the chance, it really moved us so much, didn't it? And it also made us realise
really
how
good.
Different people can be, and how being led into something, you don't necessarily feel you've got the qualifications, or you discover you haven't. But they discovered a relationship of love that meant that they overcame so many of their differences, which was really,
if
really
you see the
inspiring.
film, I think you'll see how interesting it is that you have two men who were certainly flawed, both of them. And well, I won't tell you how it goes towards the end, but it's a great lesson, actually.
Oh, it is.
I mean, I know a lot of people have a lot to say about both of those popes, but that's not what I'm talking about. Anyway, if you get the chance to see it. Anyway, I have always been incredibly bad, not at making resolutions, but at keeping them. And as I used to be a very heavy smoker.
It was a long time ago.
No, it was a long time ago. But I think I made a resolution every single year.
A day?
That I would give up.
Yes,
and the only way of resolving the tension that resulted from that was to go and buy some cigarettes, of course. But
I think so often resolutions are things you're supposed to be able to tackle on your own, aren't they? That's one of the problems, really.
Yeah.
Well, you make your own resolution, don't you? And I think that's where so often things that are bigger than you, as smoking was for a long time, as alcohol can be for people, or whatever it is that's holding you down.
I think my resolutions have turned into one resolution, which isn't even a resolution. And I know some people will understand this. I was in the garden the other night, early morning, taking the dog out, and we'd shifted the Christmas tree.
Oh yes, I was just going to say, you have to imagine our back sort of area, sort of patio area, with a huge Christmas tree lying on its side and obscuring the steps.
But it was pitch dark, so I took the dog out on the lead, missed my direction. I knew I was going round this tree, missed my direction, and suddenly I knew I was falling. And I mean, I'm about 6'3" or something. I also have a seriously arthritic back. And I'm only saying this to show what went through my head. And being in hospital last year with the head thing.
Yeah, you're not supposed to bang your head,
I'm
are
on
you?
my way down, and I thought, this looks like disaster. I could hit my head, I could hit my arms, I could hit my legs. And I was thinking, how am I going to call Bridget, who's still in bed somewhere?
Yeah, because amazingly, you hadn't taken the phone with you down to take the dog a few yards into the garden.
The thing that was odd, I mean, first of all, I fell, but I actually landed fortunately on some plants in the flower bed there.
Yes, I doubt if they were very happy about it.
And I landed very softly in it was the most odd thing. And as I was on my way down, I know this sounds like some pathetic Christian thing, but the whole thing about the sparrows, not a sparrow falls without. Now I know God doesn't rescue people from injury and all that. I'm very aware of that, but a resolution didn't come out of that. But I did think afterwards how grateful I was that I wasn't taken away when I went to hospital last year, and I was very grateful that I didn't severely injure myself when I fell, and all I was thinking was I would like to have the kind of trust that says things can go very wrong. We know they can, whatever you believe, but there is some momentum available from, and we've been saying this the last 2 or 3 weeks, from shelving some things and beginning to learn to trust. Something like that.
Yeah.
Can't even really put it
Well,
into
it's
words.
interesting, Adrian. I mean, I was trying to think about, the whole resolutions thing. And I mean, we still haven't moved. We've still got all the worry of trying to get all the last ends sorted out and all the rest of it. And that's turning out to be quite problematic. So we are even more surrounded by boxes than we were before. But I think, there I don't know, I've always so struggled with this stuff about consider the lilies of the valley and see that they don't worry, so you shouldn't worry. I mean, when you lie in bed and you're worrying and you think, well, I'd like to consider the blinking lilies, but I'm still worrying.
Yeah.
But I think...
And then you're worrying about worrying.
And you're worrying about worrying and all the rest of it. But I do think, coming back to what you just said, that, all that time ago, we started talking about... no shore in sight, and we'll come to that again in a minute, because it feels still relevant that learning to live in the moment, learning to trust in the moment, although I really wish you hadn't gone out in the dark with the dog and not known where the Christmas tree was blocking the steps, but so there are things we can do, but that sort of trust, and I know people who write to us, Adrian, some of them have problems that go on and on and on, whether it's in their heads. We heard from somebody just the other day saying her brain was cluttered.
Yeah,
you can't make it all right. Somebody we know who suffers from quite bad depression. You can't make it go away. But finding the thing within the day that can lift your spirit or can soothe your heart or can... whatever it is, helps you, doesn't it, to live in that moment. And I suppose if I was making a resolution, you can remind me of this tomorrow when I'm not living in the moment at all. But that's my resolution, to try.
It's very interesting, you're talking about worry. That I remember us once talking to somebody who knew the Bible backwards and forwards, and we mentioned something about Jesus commenting on drunkenness, and he said that's not in the I wish I had £1,000 every time someone has said that's not in the Bible when actually it is. But anyway, Jesus said be careful, and he never said things in order to be condemning. He always said things because it was practical. Be careful or your hearts will be weighed down. And he said, the translation says carousing and drunkenness,
Well,
any addiction, any
abandonment, anything that takes you away from reality.
And the third thing was anxieties of life.
Yeah.
Which I guess if you held a poll, that would be what most people were wrestling with.
Especially at the moment.
And he says, that day will close on you suddenly like a trap. And it's interesting.
Those are extraordinary words, really, aren't they?
They are, aren't they?
The day will close on you suddenly like a trap.
Yeah.
You're held in the same place you were the day before, the same place you were. I mean, we know what it feels to be trapped. Yeah.
I was thinking today about, the deepest well of abandonment in me is about my mother, who suffered from a very difficult marriage. And every now and then would walk out of the door at night shouting she was never coming back. And as a small child on the landing, I always believed it. And I think, deep in me there are the remnants of that abandonment. That because you believe things when you're little.
She never did leave, did she?
No, she was an amazing person. But these things, if you allow them to grow in you, can become very destructively distracting. And I really don't want to be trapped by them. I acknowledge them, I put them on a shelf, but I want to have a different way of looking at them. And we were talking today about when we first started doing these recordings.
Yeah, and I was thinking, what might be a good way to start the year, and I think this is as good a way as as any new thing, new idea, because it's central, isn't it? Especially with the world turmoiling around us.
Well, it's crazily challenging. You're going to read it, or should I read it?
No, you read it.
This is by Oswald Chambers, and it's the middle of a meditation, which is a longer one. He says, if I can stay in the middle of the turmoil, calm and unperplexed, that is the end of the purpose of God. God is not working towards a particular finish. His end is the process. That I see him walking on the waves, and this is the bit that is the profoundly challenging group of words. No shore in sight, no success. And if you sit and think about that for a while, no shore in sight, no success, just the absolute certainty.
Well, you've
missed
no goal, Adrian.
Yeah, that's not usually in it, actually.
Oh,
we've got a version here. Yeah, no goal, just the absolute certainty that it's all right because I see him. And I guess a lot of us are a long way from that, thinking, I don't need a shore to land on, I don't need success, I don't need a goal, if you like. Just the certainty that it's all right.
It is interesting, isn't it? His end is the process. I mean, that's a very modern way of thinking, isn't it? That I know in a lot of education now, it's the process that is considered really important, not just the end result. I was thinking about our grandson, Adrian, painting, and we have on our wall a splurge. That's the truth of it. It is a massive splurge. But it started with him doing dots and little whirly bits and quite interesting things, and then kind of painting over it, and then painting some more over it, and then even painting more over it. So you end up with this splurge. Underneath the splurge are all sorts of creative ideas. Yeah. But you can't really see them because the end of it is a splurge. And I think sometimes we need to just remind ourselves of the little creative bits that we have done and that are beautiful in themselves on the way, and how sometimes they can get kind of covered over. Sorry, it's not a very good metaphor really, but and just go back to thinking, I'm just going to enjoy that moment when I put a blob on a painting and it looked lovely, and I just could see God for a moment, or I just could. It's not easy, but it has to be the way we live. The world is not going to sort itself out for us so that we can see how God has sorted the whole world out, but we can be in the moment. It's shore in sight.
Very interesting. No success, as the world sees it. No landing place. That takes a lot of thinking about. Really
it does, but to my mind, as I talk to lots of emails from different people in different churches, there's something really lovely happening, of people thinking, okay, we can't do our 7-year plan, we haven't got the money to do this, or we can't, and going right back to looking after their neighbour.
There are not too many projects around,
not
I think.
Too many projects. Not people just giving of themselves. Yeah.
And you wanted to finish with reading a bit of this.
I did.
One of these Northumberland prayers, didn't you?
Do you know, this is one that comes into my mind a lot, different bits of it. And it is to do with saying, I can't make a resolution to believe forever. I can't make a resolution to be triumphant. But today, I believe. This is just a bit of it. Lord, you've always given bread for the coming day, and though I am poor, a lot of people don't feel they've got much bread. Today, I believe. Lord, you've always given strength for the coming day, and though I'm weak, today, I believe. Lord, you've always given peace for the coming day, and though of anxious heart, today I'm going to cling on by my fingertips. Not that it says that, it says, today I believe. I think it's really important. Lord, you've always marked the road for the coming day, and though it may be hidden, today I believe. And the last verse, Lord, you've always lightened this darkness of mine, and though the night is here, today I'm going to hang on. I'm going to believe.
It's interesting because a lot of people would say, wouldn't they, I can do some of those things, I can see some of those things God gives me, often I can't, but still today I believe.
I believe.
It's very hard to chuck away what you believe, thank goodness. So it's all a bit complicated. But if you want to spend some time thinking about what the loss of success and somewhere to land might mean, it'd be well worth doing, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and we love hearing from you, as you know.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to you next week.
See you
Goodbye.
Next week. Bye-bye.